Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Thursday, August 17th, 2023. So, as you probably know, I live in the United States and, you know, there isn't really much to do here. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that really goes out to find things to do. I'm not really that kind of person. I'm a bit of an introvert. Yeah. But really here, America, no, there's nothing to do. At least from my perspective, I'm not into sports. I don't take drugs. I don't drink. I'm not into street racing. I'm not into hiking. No, there's nothing to do except there is one thing to do here, and that is go to meetings of the city council. They're open to anyone, and every 2 weeks you can go to the city council meeting and you can make a public comment. And for a couple of years I've been doing this, and just annoying people because there's nothing else to do here, as I said. And I even set up a blog where I would say things about the city. It's the city of Lakewood, which is in Western Washington State, and so I haven't contributed to my blog for a long time. I need to start it up again soon. But anyway, I just want to give you an indication of the kind of stuff I was talking about on my blog when I was really trying to be annoying and obnoxious. So I wrote this last year. Let me just show you. Fade. Yeah, it was about the mayor of Lakewood, a man by the name of Jason Whalen, and he had announced that he was not going to be at the next city council meeting because he's gone to Hawaii. Now, if you're into climate change, that's not such that's not such a good thing to do, is it? I mean, all that jet travel, it's, you might say, oh, it's just one person, but cumulative impact, if you're into climate change. And I understand a lot of people a lot of you here are not into climate change, but just in case you were. And, the city goes on about climate change and what it's doing about climate change. He went to Hawaii, and so I wrote this thing, and I just wrote, Lakewood Mayor Jason Whalen jets off to Hawaii, and to hell with climate change. And I found a nice little picture, that meme, famous meme. Is that what's she, Disaster Girl? And so I wrote, it's a cold, miserable June in Lakewood this year, unless you're Mayor Jason Whalen, who has jetted off to Hawaii, presumably to celebrate his 35th wedding anniversary. His Facebook page has a picture of him and his wife in a bar or restaurant wearing sunglasses with a comment, just enjoying. So I wrote this article, and I was tracking the people who were reading it, and I did notice some people in Hawaii reading it. So I was kind of quite satisfied that the mayor actually got to read. Presumably it was him. Got to read what I wrote. Then what happened was some time ago he announced he was, a few months ago, he announced he was going to Hawaii again, and he basically said he was, going to, words to the effect that, he was going to do his bit, perhaps to damage the environment with his one trip to Hawaii. So I mean, I made a public comment about that, saying that is grossly irresponsible. As mayor, he should be encouraging people to look after the climate again, assuming jet travel has any impact on climate change. So, and we then saw that there were these fires in Hawaii, and I was kind of thinking about the mayor. saying that he was going to, doing his bit for climate change by going to Hawaii. Now, Donald Trump says that climate change is not the cause of a problem in Hawaii. It's not why we had these terrible fires. It was just bad organization. Maybe he's right. Maybe he's wrong. But still, I do want to look at these fires in Hawaii. And so that's my sort of topic of the day, these fires. I also want to look at the governor of Hawaii, Josh Green, and how his horoscope links with these fires. Because if you're a governor, in a state, you're kind of like the king, aren't you? You are like the head of state, but in a sort of local kind of way. So maybe when a governor becomes, you have a chart for a governor. Maybe the chart's governor is in a way a chart of the state. As soon as he is inaugurated, and he was inaugurated December the 5th, 2022. I think at around 11 a.m. So I want to look at his horoscope and see whether, you could have almost forecast a fire from his chart, or at least forecast something bad about to happen to Hawaii. So that's what I want to do. That's my theme. But before I do that, I want to look at today's astrology. And today is Thursday, August the 17th, 2023. And I'm afraid it's not a great day, really. There's not a great deal to say, and as you will see from this chart, it's dominated really by this opposition between the Moon and Saturn. You see, the Moon is at 816 Virgo, and Saturn is at 434 Pisces. Now, this opposition, London time, is exact at 9:32 a.m. So it's exact at 4:32 a.m. New York, 1:32 a.m. Los Angeles. So the rather difficult influence of this Moon-Saturn opposition is kind of more of a problem if you're in Europe, Asia, maybe Australasia. If you're in the Americas, by the time you got up and you've started going about your business, this Moon-Saturn opposition will be starting to break up. But I do think it could be a problem still for all of us. So yeah, that I think is the main theme of the day. And when I come on to do my forecasts of the 12 signs, you will see that most of my forecasts and most of the signs are pretty downbeat, and it is because of that Moon-Saturn opposition. As far as midpoints are concerned, the Sun here is aspecting the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint. That suggests to me quite a stop-go day. Jupiter is a planet of expansion, Saturn is a planet of restriction, so the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint is quite stop-go, also connected with the business cycle. So many of us may be thinking about the economy, how it's progressing or not progressing, and how it's affecting our daily life. At the same time, Saturn is making an aspect to the Mars-Jupiter midpoint. There's Mars, there's Jupiter, so the midpoint is approximately sort of 18, 19 Cancer. So Saturn is making a sesquiquadrate aspect to the Mars-Jupiter midpoint. And so, Mars-Jupiter is about the principle of, enthusiastic action, wanting to do stuff, but Saturn kind of gets in the way. And so we can't do what we want to do. So it could be quite a frustrating day. And I think most of us are probably not going to achieve very much today. But, it's just one day. As I said, tomorrow's going to be different. So let's look at what's actually going on for the 12 signs. So here are my forecasts for the 12 signs for Thursday, August the 17th, 2023. Aries, it's important that you don't feel singled out. Overall, it's not a great day, regardless of your star sign. And for your part, it feels that everything is slow, that the smallest results require a huge amount of effort. You also have to be aware that you haven't got all the energy in the world. And if you take on too much, you could exhaust yourself. Taurus, you want to do something special, which allows you to stand out from other people. But there's a lot of resistance. It seems that your progress is being blocked at many levels, and even your friends aren't being very helpful. But I do think that as the day progresses, the situation will start to ease. Gemini, you're ambitious, and there are things that you want to accomplish as soon as possible. But you have to consider the pressures that are all around you. For example, you must pay attention to your family and to the tedium of your domestic routines. I mean, I say must, it's something you must do. I mean, okay, you don't have to necessarily get completely into family life up to your neck, but it's something you really have to consider. This means that, some of your ambitions may take longer than expected to achieve because you simply have to deal with other things. Maybe you don't want to do them, but you nonetheless have to. Cancer. It's not enough to focus on details and facts, because if you do, you'll soon become lost. No, you have to think about the overarching structure, which puts everything in context. You need a philosophy or a belief system which allows you to put the small details into context. Some Cancerians may feel that a spiritual gap needs to be fulfilled. That a spiritual gap needs to be filled. Leo, the Sun, your ruler, aspects the Jupiter-Saturn midpoint. In many respects, it's a stop-go day. You think that things are about to start, then they suddenly come to a standstill. But just when nothing seems to be moving, there are signs of life. For your part, you must make sure that you don't overreact to outside events. Virgo, you have to ask yourself what role other people are playing in your life. You know that people can't be avoided, but you also have to safeguard your independence. So work out who you want to spend time with, and if someone has let you down in the past, don't give them a second chance. Libra, you sense that the world is not going in the right direction. It's nothing personal, and it's nothing to be unduly worried about. So perhaps you should think about something else and just go about your daily business, because if you're not interacting with the world, you can't be brought down by it. Scorpio, things don't work out as they should do, and this may have something to do with other people's attitude. They seem preoccupied and they just can't let go and be themselves. Perhaps you just need to lower your expectations. Everyone has their moods, and you have to accept people as you find them. Sagittarius, today you understand your responsibilities in terms of both family and work. However, you might feel that two areas of your life are at odds with one another and that you can't give both of them your full attention. So rather than make choices, you should perhaps regard family and work as natural complements, with one supporting the other. Capricorn. Today, the moon is making an opposition aspect to Saturn. This aspect could have an impact on relationships in the sense that you and your partner may have different views of the world, which could lead to a personality clash. And maybe one or both of you are suffering from information overload. But it's a temporary situation. Aquarius, you need a comprehensive approach to your finances. You can't just focus on one small thing. And it's particularly important that you understand the linkage between your own personal finances and the behaviour of other people. You might therefore conclude that you need more control. Pisces, today's Moon-Saturn opposition does have a direct impact on the main axis of your solar chart. So relationships could be problematic, and maybe it's going to be your fault. Perhaps you're going to make the other person feel self-conscious. Maybe you'll be quick to criticize them. Maybe you'll just sort of say or do the wrong things and just upset something that was actually working just fine. So when dealing with other people, you've just got to be really careful and use your Piscean sensitivity correctly. So having done all that, I'm now going to look at the I Ching. And in a way, the I Ching today is somewhat underwhelming. I suppose maybe it's just what's going on today. So here is the well, I should explain, well, as I always explain, but I threw the 3 coins in the air, asking the question, what is Thursday going to be like for visitors to my YouTube channel? And I got a single hexagram. It didn't move. None of these lines move, so it's locked. But it's quite a good hexagram. It's hexagram number 16, which is enthusiasm. There are the things going on around us make us excited. And so at this stage, I should say that this enthusiasm is giving a very different picture, perhaps, to what I was talking about with the Moon-Saturn opposition. I mean, maybe this is one advantage of having the I Ching side by side with the astrology, because it gives an alternative view sometimes. Enthusiasm is about just getting excited about what's going on around us. Things maybe really can happen. And I Ching actually talks about God in terms of enthusiasm. It's about the enthusiasm that, there is a God there, that, it's an enthusiasm about the divine power that we see all around us. And the I Ching asks us to celebrate this, hence the enthusiasm. It actually talks about music, and it sees music as a way to celebrate, and it's like music, not in any trivial sense. Music as being about the celebration of God's power and existence, in our life. But enthusiasm is not the same as a result. So yes, we can get enthusiasm. We can get enthusiastic about things, but this is a locked hexagram. There's a big danger that we get enthusiastic about something, but we just can't see it through. And maybe that's where the Moon-Saturn opposition comes. Moon-Saturn opposition is about, the moon is wanting to do stuff. It's quite responsive planet. I know it's a satellite astronomically, but it's astrologers call it as planet. It's quite a responsive body, but when it's opposition to Saturn, it can be kind of stopped in its tracks. And so there's our enthusiasm. We want it to happen. We're excited, but is it going to happen? So, what we have to do is we need to be able to see it through. Just getting excited just isn't enough. We have to be ready to make it happen. And that could take some work. Or maybe it's not about anything material. Maybe it is about something divine. If we see the divine in our lives, just celebrate it, be enthusiastic about it, and that's all it is. Just live for the moment and be happy, and I suppose praise God. I suppose given the I Ching's mention of God and the religious aspect of this hexagram. So let's now look at the issue of Hawaii. I know that, as far as I know, these fires have kind of happened a few days ago, so maybe I'm a bit late. So my apologies for that. But I mean, I think I would like to cover them. I suppose the first chart to look at would be the chart not when the fires started, but there was this particular fire in I don't know how to pronounce it, Lahaina in Hawaii. I tried to find out when this fire started. I think the first report was at 6:37 a.m. on August the 8th. But I read somewhere else that it actually started soon after midnight. So I mean, this is 12:30 a.m. You may have better information than me. So this is the broad picture of the fire. What's interesting about this is that there is a Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Taurus. Now, traditionally, Moon-Jupiter conjunction is the best aspect in the book. In Taurus, it's a great aspect, and I suppose Jupiter is a planet of expansion, and so maybe this fire. I know the conjunction is just past. It's kind of a degree after, but with Moon-Jupiter conjunction, Jupiter makes things bigger. So when you've got a small fire, Jupiter can make it a bigger fire, and so that's one aspect of it. Now, I don't know the exact time, so I could say, on this chart for 12:30, Uranus was rising. Maybe Uranus was rising, but I don't think we know for sure. So that's not very helpful. So instead, it might be worth thinking, how would we have predicted the fire? How would we have predicted some disaster for Hawaii before the event? Now, this is pure, complete 2020 hindsight here. Just bear that in mind. So what astrologers often do is they set up charts for big events, big astrological events, like new moons, a new moon, a full moon, or maybe an equinox or a solstice. Now, so new moons, full moons, equinoxes, solstices, they all happen at a precise moment. to the second, to the millisecond, actually. And so what you do is you set up that chart, and you, for the location you're interested in. So for Lahaina, you might set up the previous new moon, previous full moon, previous solstice for that location. So let's look at the exact moment that the sun entered Cancer on June the 21st, 2023, but set for Hawaii. Okay, there we are. There's the right chart. So this is the exact moment that the sun enters Cancer. In other words, it's a summer solstice set for Lahaina. So, is there anything here that is a cause for concern? Well, I don't think we can predict a fire from this chart, but it is worth noting that Saturn is exactly on the midheaven. So this chart, the solstice chart, is probably going to last about 3 months until the autumnal equinox chart at the end of September. And so for that 3 months, there is a certain sense of Saturn on the midheaven in Hawaii. I know it's set for Lahaina, but really that chart is going to be pretty similar wherever you set it in the islands of Hawaii. So maybe there are issues around government. Okay, Mercury is rising, but that's not particularly malefic. But so that's the first chart we would look at, and I'm just showing you that as just for illustration, just to show how astrologers might do it. Then what you might do is you might look at the new moon before the event. So the new moon before. So there was a new moon on July the 17th, 2023. And this new moon, it has a few hints that all may not be well. Remember, this is, 3 weeks before the fire. So you've got Mars in Virgo rising. You've got Mars is opposition Saturn. So that might suggest maybe that that all is not entirely well. I'm not necessarily making a big deal, but when we see this Saturn in the seventh house cusp, we may kind of remember the solstice chart, and the solstice had the summer solstice had Saturn on the midheaven. So we got Saturn on in the seventh house. So that's kind of a repeated theme. And as far as the ascendant is concerned, we've got Venus is rising, so that shouldn't be a problem. Venus is a fortunate planet. Venus rising is nice. But look at Neptune and Pluto. Neptune is at 27 Pisces. Pluto is at 29 Capricorn. So the ascendant is on the Neptune-Pluto midpoint. And so Venus is conjunct the ascendant, and then the ascendant is on the Neptune-Pluto midpoint. So that might be cause for concern. Also look at the midheaven. The midheaven and the ascendant are both on the Neptune-Pluto midpoint. So yeah, maybe there is something to be concerned about here. So now we're going to look at the full moon before the fire. So this is really much closer. This is this is a full moon that took place on August the 1st. Again, set for Lahaina in Hawaii. And Mars, you can see that Mars is on the ascendant again. So we've got a repeated theme, because on the new moon we had Mars close to the ascendant. On the full moon, sort of just over a week beforehand, we've got Mars close to the ascendant. And remember that astrology is really about repeated themes. If you're trying to make predictions for people, the world, or whatever, one should never ever make a prediction on the basis of one thing. There's a kind of a rule of three, that you should look at three independent events that are confirmatory. And so we've got Mars rising again. Mars is square the ascendant. It's conjunct the ascendant. It's square the midheaven. And furthermore, Mars is exactly sesquiquadrate Pluto. Now, I really must emphasize, if you're doing astrology, doing people's charts, looking at transits, whatever, do use the semi-squares and the sesquiquadrates, the 45-degree aspects and 135-degree aspects. And I will say this, and this might sound controversial, but I believe that the semi-squares and the sesquiquadrates are more important than trines and sextiles. I could do astrology without trines and sextiles. I don't need trines and sextiles to do natal astrology, I don't think. Horary astrology, yes, I need trines and sextiles, but I'm not convinced that I don't think that trines and sextiles are particularly strong, certainly in natal astrology. Semi-squares, sesquiquadrates, you need them, in my opinion. You really need to use them. You need to get used to spotting them. Sorry, I hope you don't mind me making that suggestion. That's just my view. You can discard it if you like. So Mars is exactly sesquiquadrate 135 degrees from Pluto, and Mars is conjunct the ascendant. So Pluto is sesquiquadrate the ascendant. And you can see here is the ascendant, here's the IC and the descendant here. So Pluto is on the midpoint. Pluto is on the ascendant midheaven midpoint. And so when you see something on the ascendant midheaven Pluto midpoint, that is something you need to notice. So we can say that Mars and Pluto are aspecting the ascendant midheaven midpoint. As far as what it actually means for Mars and Pluto to be aspecting the ascendant midheaven midpoint, well, in astrology, the ascendant midheaven midpoint is kind of like the time and the place. So Mars and Pluto are impacting the time and the place. Mars and Pluto is about a transformative force, a potentially very destructive transformative force, and that is what's hitting the time and the place. In other words, Lahaina, Hawaii, that's the place, and the time is that time in on August the 8th, which is sort of forecast by the full moon on August 1st. Now, another chart I want to look at in this sort of series of events taking place before the fire is the chart for when the sun was at exactly 15 degrees Leo. So when the sun is at 15 degrees Leo, it is halfway between the summer solstice in June and the autumnal equinox in September. So this is a precise moment that the sun is at 15 degrees 15 degrees Leo. You know, these are the kind of astrological, astronomical equivalents maybe of the Celtic cross quarter days, which I did talk about quite recently. So you take that moment when the sun is at exactly 15 degrees Leo, 15 of the fixed signs, and then you cast a chart for it. So what do we see? We see Mars is on the ascendant again. So we're seeing this massive run of charts which have got Mars rising. And that, I think, is what hints at all this trouble. You know, this Mars, it's on the ascendant, it's relatively close to the Saturn-Neptune midpoint. And I think this chart, this chart at 15 degrees Leo, is was only the day before the start of this particular fire. I mean, I understand that there had been fires all over Hawaii, but the start of this particular fire that was so incredibly destructive. Now, I want to consider this fire from a completely different angle. I want to look at it from a perspective of the governor. So on December the 5th, 2022, a new governor was inaugurated. So in fact, here's his chart. His name is Josh Green, and this is his inauguration chart. Set December the 5th, 2022 in Honolulu. I read a news report. I think it was about 11. I might be some minutes out, but the news for the day before said it was going to happen at 11. So I'm assuming it did happen around here, around this time. This chart for the inauguration of a new governor is like, in a way, it's kind of a new beginning for Hawaii. You know, in England we just had a coronation of Charles III. This is like a coronation. It's like, the formal beginning of the new governor's reign. And it's a new phase in Hawaii's history and development. I mean, it's not a great chart. You can see that the moon is conjunct Uranus. The moon conjunct Uranus maybe does indicate some kind of mishap. Not necessarily a complete disaster, but just a mishap, something happening that is not particularly pleasant. You can see the moon is separating from a set conjunction of Uranus, and then it's moving to a square of Saturn. So we can kind of say that the moon is aspecting the Saturn-Uranus midpoint. The moon represents perhaps the people, what's going on for the populace, and Saturn-Uranus represents a lot of tension. Now, that might not just be about fires. It might be all sorts of social problems in Hawaii. I don't know. Everyone all over America is worrying about affordable housing, homelessness, that kind of thing. But it's interesting that, just before, this disaster, this inauguration, not a coronation, the moon's not in a great position, and Uranus is actually square the ascendant. So the inauguration it's not great. I mean, it's not as bad as the chart for the inauguration, or rather the swearing in of Joe Biden as US president in January 2021. It's not in that league, but it's not really a very nice chart. Then we have a person who was inaugurated. Now that person is Josh Green. born on February the 11th, 1970. I think he shares the same birthday as, I think Sarah Palin was born on a February the 11th. And I also think that Lloyd Benson was Michael Dukakis's running mate in the 1988 election. So we got two unsuccessful running mates in presidential elections have had February the 11th as their birthday. So maybe I might have got that wrong. Maybe I'm pretty sure it's February the 11th. But maybe he's destined to be someone's running mate in some future presidential election. If so, I think he won't succeed. He'll a failed attempt to be vice president. But he seems to be a worthy human being. He's he's a physician. He's born in New York, but he's practiced medicine in Hawaii, and apparently he's done great things for the community and during COVID and all this kind of stuff. So he's the kind of person people probably want as their governor, because he seems to do a lot for his community. I don't know anything about him. But there is his chart. So the question we have to ask is, was this big fire? Did this big fire show up in his chart? Did it? Well, we're soon gonna find out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a by wheel. We put in the fire. So I don't have his time of birth, by the way. It's just a date, February the 11th, 1970. So inside is his chart. Outside is the positions of the planets at the time of the fire. So he has his sun at 22 Aquarius, 22:34 Aquarius at midday. And we can see that Uranus was, at the time of the fire, was square his sun. So that's pretty indicative of something going on. This fire, I assume, did not affect him personally, but because he's governor, in a way, his horoscope is the horoscope of Hawaii. If you take, as I've talked about it, my sort of medieval concept of heads of state, Josh Green is Hawaii, and Hawaii is Josh Green, and so when Josh Green's sun is squared by Uranus, that could well affect Hawaii. We get further confirmation if we look at the position of Venus. So his Venus is at 23 Leo. Sorry, Venus at the time of the fire was at 23 Leo, and it was opposition his sun. So that triggers this Uranus square Saturn. This Uranus square Saturn would have hung around for a long time. But then Venus going retrograde hits the sun, and so that maybe gives us a fire. Maybe that's what marks the fire. So one might say that maybe Hawaii made a mistake electing Josh Green as its governor. He may have been a nice person, but maybe the transits going on were just not very good. Maybe the people of Hawaii should not have elected a governor who had Uranus square his sun. Maybe if they'd elected someone else, the fire wouldn't have taken place. Do you think? Or maybe not. I think it's more likely that fire was kind of destined to take place, and so because it was destined to take place, then it was destined that the people of Hawaii would choose a governor whose chart chimed with that fire. So I don't think we can blame Josh Green for this fire. Although I do understand that Donald Trump is saying that it is nothing to do with global warming, but it is connected with how well prepared Hawaii was. It had its warning system, because I think with Hawaii you're thinking about tsunamis and that kind of thing. You had all these sirens, but it didn't help anyone there. At least that's Donald Trump's point, I think, or critics of the preparedness of the island. So those are a few ways of looking at the fire. It is complete 2020 hindsight. In practice, is anyone going to just spend ages looking at all these charts and working out that they all line up? I'm not personally that focused on Hawaii. I wouldn't be really looking for a disaster in Hawaii. I mean, maybe you need some sort of computer program to select all these things for you. But I think we can see that certainly in hindsight, there was a lot of warning that some kind of disaster was going to befall Hawaii. Maybe not that it was specifically going to be a fire, but certainly something bad. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.